To the much anticipated panel discussion. I feel very privileged in the midst of a grand repository of knowledge when it comes to human resources. I've got three giants. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much. I'm sure by the time I leave this stage, I would be a human resource practitioner by default, and a very good one at that. So I am looking forward to it. So a PhD and a master's degree in the same place. Thank you very much. So we're going to kick off by zooming in on our theme for today, developing the right talent, building the growth mindset. We've had a lot of different perspectives. We've looked at it from a lot of different angles. Most importantly, we've tried to imbibe all the nuggets that come with this particular theme. So I'm going to take a general overview from each of my panelists on this theme, developing the right talent and building the growth mindset. So I'm going to start with you, Doc.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much. And once again, good morning to all practitioners listening out there. So when I look at the theme, something, just comes to my mind. This is something that for both practitioners and non-practitioners, we need to be mindful of. There are times that when you talk about talent management in an organizational setup, there are people, including sometimes even HR practitioners, who think that you are being discriminatory because everybody in the organization has a talent, one talent or the other, and that is why the person is an employee. But when we talk about managing talent or talent for that matter in an organization, we are talking about the fact that truly everybody has a latent talent, but your talent must be relevant to the operations of the business in which you are in. And that is what we tap to be able to manage, develop, and then utilize it for the best of the organization. And so looking at talent management, developing it, and then the fixed mindset against the growth mindset. Let us have this analogy of where we have all come from, various universities, various schools with various degrees, etc. You have a certain fixed certification that says that this is what you have done. That may only help you to enter an organization, but it definitely cannot help you to grow in that organization if you are going to be fixated on the certification or the degree or the skill that you have brought into the system from school. But when you have come in and you understand that change is constant, but learning is ongoing, then you start working towards what is the business operation of where I am. How do I ensure that my talent or my acquired knowledge is now working or skilled towards making it more relevant to my business operations? And then HR has a duty, so that is a duty of that individual. And HR has a duty to ensure that systems and structured approach is actually put in place to identify people who have the right potential, who have the right mindset, who are prepared to go that journey and be able to put them through that structured analytical process to make sure that you help them grow their vision, you help them grow their ambition. And that is what talent management in itself and the growth mindset is talking about. And so, generally, I'm positioning it from the point of HR, for that matter, representing the organization, has a role to play. That individual employee also has a role to play. And it is when we have that synergy between the individual's ambition, readiness and preparedness to grow, and HR putting in the right structures, when the two meet, then we have an optimized way of enhancing and managing the right talent for business success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Justice, Doc is looking at this from a two-pronged angle where organizations and individuals simultaneously contribute to growth. What's your general perspective when it comes to building the growth mindset as well?
All right, thanks, Kosi, and thanks to HR Focus team for this opportunity. It's an honor to be here. Going through the synopsis of the theme, I realized that the stats from the research are revealing. The numbers in terms of the percentages speak a lot. They remind us that employees of today do not just want financial benefits or non-monetary benefit, but they also are craving learning opportunities, other grounds to grow and develop. It also informs us that as HR professionals representing management, we have a huge task at our desk when it comes to developing our people. And so in our quest to do that, I gather that we need to ensure that our people have the right growth mindset so that developmental agenda or initiatives can be achieved for the purpose of the individual's growth and organizational growth as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Justice. Our keynote speaker, looking very elegant.
Thank you very much, Kosi.
Yeah. Thank you.
I won't want to belabor what my colleagues have said, but what I liked about the theme is developing the right talent. And I want us to hone in on right. Because you see, organizations have goals. Organizations spend time to go on retreats for strategy sessions, and there's a direction. So when we develop talent and we ask employees to have the growth mindset, we, as HR practitioners, must ensure that the employees know the goals of the organization, because as my colleague said, there's got to be that sort of alignment. I once met a guy who worked in a software company in Ghana and asked the HR for leave and wanted the company to pay for a course in, I think, German. And they had no intention of moving to Germany, the organization. They had no German partners. And he really wanted to develop himself and his talents, but those were not in alignment with the goals of the organization. For me, this is critical. And we all thought it was funny then, but later I asked myself, does he know the strategy of the organization? Is he in alignment? This is a question that, or a statement that I want to leave with my fellow HR practitioners. Are we on the table? Are we talking to the employees about the strategy of the organization? If we are, then it's a step in the right direction. So for me, it's that sort of alignment, the right talent, developing the right talent. What for? The goals of the organization.
Okay, I'm going to go into a very murky area right now, based on what she said. Now, human resource management ideally is a social science to a large extent, simply because it deals with people, it deals with people and organizational behavior, etc. But the most important factor is the people. Now, you talked about aligning that talent, and for a lot of employees within a corporate setting, a standard corporate setting, they want to have a certain sense of belonging, and that includes achieving personal goals as well, in addition to organizational goals. So in aligning the training needs or the development needs and ensuring that they also develop personally and develop professionally, would that not be a very unclear or shady converging point, Justice?
Well, I honestly don't think so, because these two go hand in hand. Once you develop, you're looking at not developing just your professional lifestyle or your professional space. You're looking at developing your personal life as well. So the two go hand in hand. And in this case, as HR professionals, we don't only manage your professional side at work in terms of developing what you do at work, but also outside the workspace, outside the work environment. That is where your personal life, your social life comes to play. So these two go hand in hand, and of course, there is no conflict if you should ask me.
Doc, you happen to be in the public sector, and for a lot of practitioners, I mean, generally, not just HR, they believe there's a lot of stagnation in the public sector because there aren't opportunities for people to develop themselves. As much as this myth has been bandied around, I believe there's an opportunity that exists either ways. Is this myth true?
I'm glad you call it a myth because I have worked in both public and private sectors. I've worked in multinationals and I'm in public sector now. And I can assure you that every employer has a mindset of getting the best out of his or her employees. And every employer believes that training and development is one of the key areas of getting the right, talent, as we say, to deliver on the job. I think that people make very generalized or have very generalized opinion about public sector. If there is one area where training is really delivered, it is within the public sector.
Can you please repeat that so we have it on record?
Yes. If there is one area that training is really important, it is the public sector. And I speak, from where I said that public sector believes that people need to grow. However, that is why I keep talking about, the two-pronged approach, that individuals, whether within the public or private sector, as an employee of an organization, you must understand that you have a certain responsibility towards your own relevance, towards your growth. And I'm glad when Justice said that as an individual employee, you have your individual aspiration, professional or otherwise. The organization also has its aspiration. The organization employs you so that because they believe that you have what it takes at that point in time to support in delivering the aspiration of the organization. If you get into that business, like I said from the beginning, you must be prepared to understand the strategy, the course of the business, and what the business is actually about. And that is when you are able to tell yourself as an individual that, does my personal aspiration align with the organizational aspiration? If they do align, then hallelujah. Because then you know that you are going on that same tangent. Where you see a variance, you ask yourself, will that variance, am I prepared as an individual to actually work towards the achievement or aligning my personal goals by being flexible around it, tweaking it to suit the organizational aspirations so we can go on that journey together? Or I am so stuck in my aspiration that nothing is going to, mend it. And therefore, I don't think this is the right place to be. People should be able to take bold decisions. But it will be very wrong for you as an individual to still stay in an organization and not work towards the aspirations of the organization because it may be at variance with your personal aspirations. And I like the example that Margaret gave. Yes, and I have seen and experienced that in some ways before, in my past experiences, that people will come wanting, for instance, study leave to go and study a course that has absolutely no relevance to the business operations. Let's remember that no business is a charity. Businesses invest in their people to grow them. And any investor, and I'm sure Josephine has said, any investor expects returns on its investment. And so while they are developing the training and developing you and your talent, they expect that something will come back to them. So if, for instance, and whether it's the public sector or private or wherever, and you come to the HR table and ask, I need study leave to go and study this particular course, and they feel that it is not aligned to what, the aspirations of the organization or the strategy of the organization is, they may want to advise you that why don't you look at this? This is where, the world is going. This is where the business is going. Globally, this is what we are looking at. So that you'll be able to have a kind of flexibility towards, making sure that both the organization and yourself are aligned at a point. I think, for me, one area that we need to look at when it comes to talent development and some of these myths is what I call ability versus willingness. People have the ability to give, but they are unwilling, both employees and even HR. So if as an employee, I have all the skills, I have the abilities, and everybody can see my potential, but attitude-wise, I'm unwilling to bend, to be flexible, it becomes very difficult to align. For an HR practitioner, if HR practitioner will say that this is just what the policy says, and the policy is between A and B, and I'm not bending, I'm not being flexible, even when business strategies and individual, needs are changing, then you see that same ability, that HR practitioner has the ability to interpret, policy, but is not willing to be flexible about what will help both the individual employee and the organization. And so that is, how we position that whole thing, because I think that it's a myth that, public sector doesn't train. It is a total, misconception of what the public sector is.
So you heard it here on the HR Focus Interactive. So please completely discard that myth immediately. The public sector is very rife when it comes to training and development. So please, the people who have been lying to you, let's not entertain that. So Mrs. Jackson, you have been involved in training a lot of people and making sure that the right talent is developed. But then for a lot of people along the way, when they undergo that development, they seem to decide that once they have attained what they require in terms of development, they start to grow wings and decide to fly away from the organization that invested in training them. Is it just an issue of mindset, or is it just an issue of the fact that people just want to progress?
I think it's not a yes or no answer. It's complicated, as they say. I know the young ones sometimes say, are you in a relationship? They say it's complicated. This sort of employee-employer relationship is complicated. It boils down to so many factors. But one, in my work, in the sort of work that I do, I go around a lot. And in different countries, you come across the same situation. Employee engagement. Are you training for training's sake? Or are your employees really into the organization? Do they feel a sense of belonging? Are they being listened to? I once met a gentleman who had an employee go to him to say, oh, I think if we do this the other way, it will augur well for the organization. And he said, you know all this and you don't have your own company. Instead of listening to him, he said, you know all this and you don't have your own company. So I think that it depends on how you treat the employees. If they have a sense of belonging, if they are appreciated for what they do, if you have an environment where employees, can brainstorm and be creative, there's a high percentage that people will stay. But I also say something about the SMEs. Let me speak to what I know very well. The SMEs don't have the take me fly, the ligidi, yeah. So you may expose your employees, you may help them grow. I say this to the SMEs most of the time, that at a point, it's also about being competitive. Yes, and in every relationship, sometimes people outgrow the other person in the relationship. It happens with organizations too. When your employee is becoming a big boy or a big girl or a big person, that's when you should know that it's time for that big person to fly. Allow people to fly, but you should have a succession plan in place. No matter how big or small you are, you must have a succession plan in place. No matter how big. no matter how small you are. And if you are a small one, you should have this sort of job rotation where people, the employees, can do different roles, can take on different roles at different times. It is critical. You can try all the tricks in the books, but sometimes people grow. When they grow, allow them to fly. They will always come back to you. I say as a consultant, when my employees fly, I clap for them because they may even bring you business. Look at it that way. Yes, true. They'll bring you business. You bless them, they go away, you leave, you say, good. At least I have developed talent for Mother Ghana. I have developed talent for Africa. I have developed talent that will go out there to the real world and make me proud. Ours is to develop talent. We never said develop only for yourself. It is for the general good. Keep on developing. Keep on engaging your employees. When it's time for them to fly, allow them to fly. That's what I
Oh, that's very profound. So from cocoons to butterflies, where they have the really beautiful wings and then the show off.
Yes.
You're proud of the fact that you helped to
and they will
them.
always mention you. They will always cite you. They will always say, I always talk about my first boss and how he gave me the wings to fly. Why don't we allow people to fly? It's beautiful when you fly. Allow people to fly.
Oh, that's wonderful. I wish I could tell you to give her a round of applause. Okay, so Justice, as she spoke about succession planning, when it comes to training and development, I believe there's a lot of thought that goes into it. There's a lot of strategy. How central should succession planning be to a training and development strategy?
It must play a key role in that, in the sense that, I'll give you an example. Typically, organizations will look at first line managers, developing them to midpoint or middle level, and then to top or senior management. As part of that strategy, you should have in place a plan that at every level, when people move, there are others who have been trained, readily available to fill those roles. So, for example, if you have, let's say, an entry-level field service technician who has expressed interest in leading people, leading projects, this person will probably be put on some supervisory or management development program for maybe the first level or midpoint. When that individual has been trained and moves to the next level or layer, there should be someone readily available as part of your succession plan to take over those entry-level service technician roles. So succession planning plays a key role, very significant role in ensuring that your talent and development strategy is in a good shape. Other than that, you end up having people moved up the ladder, and you don't have individuals readily available and trained to fill the lower grades. So it plays a key role here.
Definitely. Now, I was talking about key roles, and what you spoke about people being able to and people who are willing to. For a lot of people, they believe the growth mindset should be ingrained, it should be institutionalized. How do you reckon we can institutionalize that within our organizations?
All right, thank you. So when it comes to the institutionalization of a growth mindset, we need to have an organizational culture. And so we need to start from what is the culture of this business, of this environment. We need to start creating a culture of creativity, a culture of innovation, a culture of openness, a culture of integrity, a culture of accountability, of commitment, of trust, a culture that creates the opportunity for people to know that these are the fine lines within which, I have to operate. Within that culture, there should be that readiness for people to say, these are the opportunities, and this is how I want to work towards the opportunities. There should be an HR system that is actually looking at people, because when we talk about talent management, for instance, you are looking at not just performance, but potential. So you are looking at both performance and potential, because the organization is an ongoing, business, and you want situations where people can grow in it. You cannot grow physically without growing your mind, and growing your mind means that you are ready to take both horizontal and vertical challenges. And so sometimes people in the organizations believe that growth is just about vertical. But actually growth, and she talked about job rotation, growth is about both horizontal and vertical, where you have a broad breadth of, understanding the various concepts or the various parts of the organization. So when you get up there, you would have been built well enough, to overlook and then to be responsible for some of the roles that are, out there. And that is how you institutionalize, by having the talent matrix and trying to see where people fit. But I think we also need to have a certain kind of mindset, again, that helps with growth. That says that when we talk about succession planning, for instance, that says that it is not once a successor, always a successor. So it is not once saved, always saved. Where I think that, let's say 5 years ago, justice, has been earmarked for this role. And therefore, instead of having that growth mindset, where he starts becoming very curious and inquisitive about the organization, and being part of cross-functional projects, speaking up and then making sure that he's innovative, creative about how we develop, how we go forward, showcasing the right attitude and becoming a role model for others. Justice then believes that, oh, I've already been penciled, and I'm using penciled, forgetting that a pencil can be erased. And so if you do not exhibit the right kind of, mindset, the growth, continue to learn, continue to show the potential, continue to show a sense of leadership, and then get the organizational values to align with your values and develop yourself, then a time may come where, somebody else may fit into that slot that had originally, in quote, been your slot. And that is where people become frustrated. And that's why people think that there is a reason why, other frivolous reasons why it is not him and it is some other. But I think that when it is institutionalized and we have that right culture and we disseminate the information on the culture to the people, we engage them where they understand why we want to, operate with this culture, then people start having that growth mindset, because I know that, yes, I've been penciled, but I have not been penned. It means that I need to continue to do the right things, to learn, to be part of the business, to showcase my talents, etc., and be strategic, about my performance and my preparation at every point in time. Because with that preparation, even when the opportunity knocks at your door, it will meet an unprepared mind, and that opportunity cannot take advantage of an unprepared mind. But when you are prepared and the opportunity knocks, and you have a strategic positioning, you are meeting that opportunity squarely. And so those are some of the things that from HR perspective we should be doing, and then be able to disseminate that to employees so that we are all aligned and singing from the same hymn sheets.
Definitely. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to institutionalize the growth mindset, I think these are the points right there. Now, talking about the opportunities that exist to people, Mrs. Jackson. Statistics show us that 74% of workers are willing to learn new skills or retrain in order to remain employable. But then there's that general school of thought out there that says organizations are not investing enough in training their staff. I don't know how viable that school of thought is, but do you think organizations should be doing more?
It depends on, I think they should. Organizations are doing a lot, but surprisingly enough, when times get tough, then the first thing most organizations cut is training budgets. It is not a myth. They cut the training budget. And I've been very sad, because we also saw that the world was going digital. Digitalization was taking over. And then COVID sped that process up. And a lot of employees now need to upskill or reskill. But that is when organizations are saying things are tough. So we need to hold on. There are few organizations that have started, but those of us in this field, Justice, am I lying?
You're spot on.
Charlie, it's raining, but the ground is hard. Very hard. For those of us in the capacity building space. Because organizations are thinking, oh, before COVID, we had training for our staff. They should be able to. But things have changed. Things have changed. If you run an organization and you're listening to me, this is the time to really look for professional coaches for your staff to unleash their potential. This is the time to go in for training. Everybody thought, let me give you an example. I teach how to work online. A lot of people are saying, oh, Zoom came, now we all know. Then the few who come for the trainings that we hold are like, oh, wow, I thought I knew how to use the features and functions. Oh, I can't. Oh, and I've been doing this and I didn't know. I mean, how will you know if you don't have that curious mind? How would you know if you don't read around? You see, it is said the more you know, then you realize that the less you know. The more you find out, the less you know. I wish they could play that song for me. You know, no, the more you search, the more you realize that, I don't know anything at all. Don't cut your training budgets. Continue to build the capacity of your people because you need them for this new dispensation. You need them to develop the skills. The skills, you know, even if you are a chartered accountant, now you've got to know how to use software. So don't tell me I've chatted. Today, we have launched the HR software. Don't tell me, oh, I'm old school. So, you know, a lot of people are afraid to go online because they haven't been trained. You know, I'm passionate about this. I could go on and talk to you about why you shouldn't cut your budget. Because you need to develop the right talent to be able to achieve your goals. So don't leave out human resources in this time. Don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I just add a word to that? I think that she's spot on, but I also want to add the fact that as HR practitioners, we need to understand whichever times that we are in and be flexible enough to still obtain the expected outcomes, but diversifying our portfolio and our way of doing things. I think that there is a certain mindset, I hope I'm wrong, but that mindset is like the only time I feel an organization has trained me is when the organization has either sent me out internationally or put me in a certain, you know, a four-walled space to have somebody, you know, train, as it were, me. But I think that is something that as HR practitioners, we should not condone, because in a typical situation of COVID, where no organization expected that, where we even thought in the initial, you know, stages that this is going to be like a kind of 9-day splash, and then it continues for 2 years. We cannot expect that even the revenue expectation for that business will not be the same. It dwindled. People had to re-strategize. Strategies were thrown, you know, out of gear. And so as HR people, when we know that indeed we still need to train our people, but this is the situation that we are in, what do we do? If it is technology that we have to say, let us invest that little budget of training in technology. And be able to train a lot more people via, you know, technology. Let us be able to encourage people to do a lot more reading and understand, to us, you know, to have sessions, brainstorming sessions where we share ideas. It's part of learning. Let us have a situation where we give feedback. Let's train managers to give feedback. In fact, let us even build and strengthen our network, our professional networks. Because going into sometimes we use platforms for all kinds of things, but it is a way of learning. If I'm a member of, a professional association, and we are discussing professional issues there, and people are bringing their challenges at work, and you are sharing maybe your solutions, or you are bringing yours and people are sharing their solutions, there can be no better learning, practical better learning than that. So I think that the budget, you cannot always keep your budget sacrosanct because of circumstances that may come, either prepared or unprepared. But with whatever it is that has been cut and whatever is left, I think as HR practitioners, we need to be innovative and creative enough to still give training and invest in our people, get that same right outcomes, maybe even better outcomes, but not necessarily spending as much as we would have if the situation had been, the normal. We are not in normal times. We still are not. And so let us have that mindset, and I think it's very important. She can train 1,000 people, in a day across the world. Yeah. And I can do same, he can do same, we all can do same. But I cannot, in this time, maybe send even perhaps 20 to an external source to be trained. And I'll get more people trained if I use other means and other, but still have my portfolio running.
Let me give an example. Sorry.
Let's take a word from Justice.
I think to add to what my senior colleagues have said, another tempting thing that organizations do, especially when it comes to cutting budgets for training, is to go on that stretch or journey where the organizations give more tasks or duties to an individual in the name of doing more with less. But we have to be emphatic about this, that the goal of TD, talent development, is not to do more with less. I mean, that's a rather insensitive approach, if you should ask me. But the ultimate goal is to invest heavily, invest in the right way, invest in the right training programs, and create or design talent development initiatives that, deepen and shaping the skills of our employees. So that attempt is wrong. That approach of doing more with less is really wrong.
Definitely. So we need to be more. It's not just about doing more with less. It's about doing what is right. Exactly. Ideally, going forward. Thank you. Yeah.
And whilst I talk to the HR leaders, I would also like to talk to individuals. At a point, your life is in your own hands. It is your responsibility to develop yourself. So now, what about LinkedIn Learning? What about Coursera? Yes, there are resources out there, that you can. There are some free trainings that you can go for, and still get your certificate if it's certification that you're looking for. Yes, I know a lot of people who look for certification.
That is a Ghanaian mentality. People like the paper.
No, you see, you can't also blame people, because when they are going for jobs, you are asked, what do you have? Excuse me, I will speak from what I know. So forgive me if you are not a Christian. But even God, when he met Moses, said, what do you have in your hand? Yeah. So it's always what you have in your hand first, before you're allowed to sit on the table to talk. So you can't blame. So if you're looking for a certificate, LinkedIn is there, Coursera is there. There are so many. And as my sister said, even the professional groups, the number of times we have organized free trainings for those in our groups. And it's free. And it's free knowledge. So networking is important. You want to grow yourself, have a plan. Ask yourself where I want to be in the next 5 years, even in my own organization. Look for free courses. Join professional associations. You will benefit from those. And feedback. It is not only HR that should be asking for feedback. You should also be asking for feedback. So your life is in your own hands. There are free resources. You can have leadership tests online. There are so many of them to help you plan. Briggs Myers, we have the code, we have so many of them. I mean, I could go on listing those free resources that you can use to develop yourself. So please, your life is in your own hands.
Definitely. I mean, talking about resources, Justice, you are a sportsman. You understand sports. So last week I had an interview with Stella. Do you know who Stella is? Okay, so Stella is the only Ghanaian to have won the World Cup at under 20 level with the national team. And he made some very interesting revelations. So I asked him, why is our football where it is now? And he said, if you go to Pram where they train the coaches, the course outline they use for their CAF license D was updated in 1996. How many years ago was that? 20. Yes. 26 years. So if you don't take the honors and go out there and develop yourself as a coach, you probably be doing a lot of archaic coaching when it comes to football. And there isn't a conscious effort to make sure that we progress with it. And I believe for a lot of organizations that we find ourselves in, one of the biggest challenges has been identifying the right modes of training, making sure we are updated, etc. So starting with you, I mean, as practitioners, what should we do to ensure that we are very current with our training, our training is relevant, and most importantly, is effective?
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, okay. So let me, again, I like to address both sides, the employee and the employer in this respect, HR representing the employer. I say that in the times of old, for instance, right, when we were growing up.
You're making us feel very young.
Don't worry about that. You are. In Ghana, there were only 3 universities. 3. And you must, if you have to go to the university, it must be just one of them. Yeah. Most probably, if I'm not wrong, you must necessarily be on campus. Oh, yes. You must necessarily sit in the lecture hall and write your notes. You must necessarily be in the big hall to write your exam. I mean, all these things, we have to go through that. But I always say that the youth of today are blessed beyond what some of us can comprehend. How many universities do we have, let's say, in the country? Okay. How many of them are running regular, weekend, sandwich, you can name them? How many online programs actually, are available? How many of these professional networking associations are thriving? When did we, what are we using social media for? Photos. What? Yes.
Taking pictures on Instagram.
Exactly. What, and all these are learning methodologies or learning opportunities that have grown in leaps and bounds, especially when some of us, think that not too far distant past, we see that there were only 3. You understand? And so every individual, as she said, that you have that responsibility. From that individual point of view, I say that you are responsible for your relevance. Nobody creates your relevance for you. And in fact, even if somebody creates this for you, I can assure you that that person is not going to maintain it for you. And so when it is created for you, you are lucky. Maintain it by constantly learning, using all these opportunities. Perhaps, what will you be using your weekend for? Perhaps, what are you using, your social media platform? Perhaps, what are you using your laptop for? Perhaps, what are you using your little salary, if you want to call it little, what are you using it for? We need to invest in ourselves. And that is why I'm saying that if you want to remain current, some of these journals that are online, in our time or in the times of old, it must be posted. You must walk to a post office and perhaps retrieve that. And how much time will it take for you to get one journal? Right. But today, just by a click of a button, you can get every journal, the latest of them, in your professional field if you want to, and study that and use that to upgrade yourself. When it comes to the organization, I expect that organizations led by HR will constantly, frequently, regularly, at the right periodic, intervals, look at what policies they have, see whether the policies align to the current events or current environment, current business, environment, and be able to say that this particular policy that will support the growth of people, that will support our training, is outmoded, and therefore we need to do it this way. I think HR practitioners should get out of their seats, walk into some of these institutions of learning, have relationships with people like, Mrs. Jackson, who are in the lead, and then be able to say that, look, I have this policy, but I have employees. I want to, utilize the space for them, train them, develop them. This is what I have. What can you help me with? But if we want to sit as HR practitioners and be comfortable in our offices and just take what policy is and lament that this policy was last reviewed in 1995 and 2015, and what is management doing? There is nobody called management but we. And therefore, I think that it is a two-pronged approach. To remain current, HR needs to help us by reviewing policy, and they, HR themselves, knowing what is current. Because you can only give what you have. If you don't know what is current, how can you even review that policy to make it, current? And not just even current, but to look into the future, to say that in the next couple of years, what should I anticipate? Because today we are talking about talent. In the days when talent was only in my local market, today the talent you need and I need is a global talent. And you can pick from anywhere. So as an HR person, how am I training my people, making sure that they are globally competitive and not just local champions? And so these are the things we need to do from both the employee angle and from the organizational angle, led by HR in this sense.
Definitely. I mean, so we'll come to you.
Yeah, I would even want to go beyond training. I want to speak about capacity building. You see, most of the time we all talk about training, but there's more to developing your talent than training. Why don't you do a performance needs assessment? Now we have moved from training needs assessment to performance needs assessment. So you know the strategy of the organization. If you don't know how to do performance needs assessment, contact people who can do performance needs assessment for you. Because at the end of the day, it's about what performance do I require of the employees? How are they performing now? What stops them from that performance? It could be a simple gadget, a simple tool. But as HR personnel, we always say, they need training. They may not even need training. Yeah. It may be coaching they need. Simple coaching, maybe even from their supervisor. Mm-hmm. Nothing to do with training. It may just be a simple job aid. Maybe they are in a restaurant, a hotel, your restaurant. Maybe it's just writing the recipe down on a card and posting it at a place where they can see. It's a job aid. Maybe they are at the front desk and they need to receive visitors. Maybe it's a job aid they need to help them do that. Maybe it is training. Maybe it is just having mentors. Maybe it is just encouraging them and paying sometimes professional fees for them to join certain networks. So training, and that's how come sometimes we say other top officials are upset and they say training, when we train our staff, we don't see, there's no return on learning investment. We don't see that return. It is because we train when maybe they needed a coach. We train when it was just mentoring. We train when we just needed a job aid. We train when maybe it was just something as simple as a mentor. Performance needs assessments.
Definitely, and we need to understand the corridors we are going into, just so we don't stray into the wrong corridors. So it's definitely very important. Yes, Justice, you're going to add something.
So I was going to say that, look, at every point in time, when it comes to development, when it comes to growth, the ball will always be thrown into our court. It is up to us to take ownership and either play or we watch the ball. Because as an employee, the organization will be making certain provisions, utilizing all resources, but it's also up to you as an individual to make good use of the resources available. Now there is everything online, so we can always take ownership of our development and growth and make good use of the resources. So once the ball is thrown into our court, it's up to us to either play it or we watch it, and someone will play it for us.
Definitely. You spoke about the fact that you are responsible for your relevance. So it casts a very bright light on personal branding. Personal branding is important. How do you think training and development is an enabler for personal branding?
All right, so let me take it from this point. I totally agree with you that personal branding is very, very essential in developing yourself and in having the growth mindset that we are talking about, because you need to know what you stand for. You need to have your values, and as it was said in the morning, your values may not necessarily be fixated from day one through your life, because you need to look at what values you need to espouse now. But I mean, having said that, I think it's important for us to also understand that in trying to work on your values or your personal branding, you need to reorientate your mind. You need to understand historical facts and current and future facts. You need to understand that what got you here will not get you there, most probably. And so you need to brand yourself with all the things that we are talking about, the learning mindset. How do I learn? And what kind of associations do I need to, as it were, belong to? Not necessarily for, just to say, I know this, I do that. But where can I get that learning? Where can I get that shape up to actually build a brand that is me, a brand that is unique? And when we talk about personal branding and we've talked about, mentoring, there are times that people will just, walk to you or come to you and I want you to mentor me. And the question that you should always ask yourself is that, and I'll ask anybody who, can, what is it that you think is your gap? What do you think I have that actually fits into supporting that gap? And most invariably, people don't know. All they know is that they've seen you, you are a nice person, you talk well, and I like you, so I want you to mentor me. In what? Because mentoring is actually, it should have an outcome of filling a certain gap, supporting you. So that, and actually when you even find that gap, you ask yourself, do I have what it takes? Or it is him, or it is her. And so there's one thing I always try to let people understand, that we all went to school, and when you talk about SWOT analysis, I mean, it's one of the most, it's the commonest kind model, of, model that, and when you are given that paper to write, I'm sure that you'll be asking for more paper, because you understand that. How many of us have sat down and actually done what I call personal SWOT? Very important to build your personal brand. Know your personal SWOT, because your personal SWOT will determine your worth. So what are your strengths? Honesty. Sit and ask yourself, what are my strengths as an individual, professionally, socially, whatever? What are my weaknesses? Being very honest with myself. What are those weaknesses? And because I want to develop my career, and perhaps whatever your vision is, what are the opportunities that are available in that space? And because those opportunities, I've identified them, are there any threats that can ward off me achieving those opportunities? So that you can consolidate your strength, you can fix your weaknesses, you can take advantage of the opportunities, and then you'll be able to ward off or actually turn threats into opportunities. And when we are able to do that as an individual, as a person, then I know where my gap is. And so when I come to you and, in that conversation and say, I need support, I need, you to mentor me, I need you to coach me, I'm being specific as to this is my gap. At least for that moment, that's what I've identified. And I see you, maybe I listen to you, I've spoken with you, and I think that you have what it takes for me to help me. And when you do that, you are building a certain brand for yourself. And in branding yourself, when you even have a mentor, when you have a coach, when you have somebody you admire, please, nobody mentors to clone the other person. So you are not mentoring somebody for the person to be you. You are mentoring and coaching the person to understand the gaps, for you to help support that, to fill those gaps, and for that person's uniqueness to come out and be displayed, so that he becomes a unique individual with his or her own personal brand. You have yours, but you would have impacted the person. And those are some of the pillars we need to identify and, and run with when we are talking about personal branding, vis-a-vis mentoring, coaching, etc. The uniqueness of you is always important, and that's what sets you apart from everybody else.
That's absolutely phenomenal. We have gotten some fantastic insights. Like I said, by the time I get up and leave here, I'll be a very seasoned HR professional as well. I've learned a lot. I mean, with the caliber of people I have on stage with me, I mean, it's not far-fetched at all. I believe I have close to 100 years of experience when it comes to HR practice right on stage with me, so it's not far-fetched at all. So we will be wrapping up on our panel discussion, but before we do that, we'll take final thoughts from our esteemed panelists, starting from you, our keynote speaker.
I would like to end on branding, because I loved what my colleague said, that when you go to a mentor, you must go with an identified gap, because the buck stops with you as an individual. This is to most of the young people out there. They want you to mentor, and then online you see someone mention your name and say, "Oh, my mentor." Then you are wondering, when did we start the sessions? When the sessions have not started, and the sessions will never start. So please, if you identify a mentor and you want the mentor to work with you, have meetings with the mentor. When you look at our thumbprints, no two individuals have the same prints. We are different. So you see something about your mentor that you like, please make sure you come out as an individual with your own traits and characteristics. And not, I like what she said, not a clone of another person. When you do your SWOT analysis, please do a 360 analysis. Ask others about how they see you as well. Because sometimes what you think you are, in actual fact, is not what you really are. Be honest. Take feedback, because those with a growth mindset take feedback and use the information to help them grow. Take negative criticism kindly, work on them. You will become better. You will be known as the better and good employee and a high flyer if you don't assess yourself alone, but allow others to do so as well. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So it's been a great learning experience for me. Very insightful. Thanks to Doug and Madam Margaret. I've learned a lot. I'll end with these two things. One, today's workforce, whether we like it or not, craves growth, and that's about, if I'll say 201% accurate, and that's a fact. Now the second thing is that a mind that is stretched by any new learning experience can never go back to its old dimensions. Okay, so having all these in mind, it has even become more crucial now than ever for business owners, business leaders, HR professionals to ensure that we have the right investment in place and we pay more than the usual attention to developmental programs and talent development programs for our employees. So I think that there is much work to be done on the side of organizations and individuals as well. It's a shared responsibility, and I believe that with the right engagement, as we have said, we'll be able to develop our people for the organization, for families, for society, and for generations after. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Justice. Doc.
Right, so I'll end by saying that for both HR practitioners and employees, we are talking about growth mindsets. a mindset that wants to grow does not rely on past glories. So, me, I was this, I did that. Oh, have you forgotten? Haven't you heard? You are relying on past glories. But that is not a mind that wants to grow. A mind that wants to grow also needs to understand the performance of today. Your performance yesterday is historical. Your performance today is current. But what can grow that mind is your potential, which is the future. And so you need to start thinking about what next, what next, what next. And finally, let me say that if you want to grow in your career, be a talent, have a growth mindset, you need to have this principle, and I share it many times, that your aptitude or your knowledge, your competence alone will not get you there. You need to have that right aptitude, right knowledge, right competence, and combine that with right attitude, right resilience, a forward-moving, thinking. That is when you can develop your mindset. And so, for me, that simple formula is aptitude plus attitude equals altitude. How far you can go with your career growth is a combination of your right aptitude of knowledge and your right attitude of behavior. And that is what I want to leave with our audience.
So you want to write that down. Aptitude plus attitude is equal to altitude. So the special doc formula for growth. Thank you very much. So for those of you that are joining us online, I believe you have very, very interesting questions for our panelists. If you have this much knowledge on one stage and you don't ask questions, then it means you probably don't want to grow. So let's put all our questions in the chat box. Even if we are not able to answer all of them today, we definitely would make sure that we put it across to our panelists. We would get you answers. That's what we do at HR Focus. We get answers for all the HR questions that are there. So we definitely do patiently wait for all your questions. In the meantime, I'd like to say a big thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much. Our keynote speaker, Mrs. Jackson. Thank you very much, Dr. Stella. Thank you very much, the gentleman in the middle, Mr. Justice Annan. It's been absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I feel like Superman. I'm ready to go and vie for president. Not yet. I'm not 40. Yeah. But then again, it's been phenomenal. I mean, extracting all the knowledge from you, imbibing that knowledge and hoping to make the most of it. For all of us that have joined online as well, I believe you have learned a lot. I believe our mindsets have been transformed from that of a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. I believe we all want to fly away, not necessarily away from our organizations, but then again, fly away into a realm where success would surround us, into that stratosphere of greatness in everything that we do. And I believe our organizations as well will bear us that responsibility and ensure that once we meet them halfway with our commitment, once we meet them halfway, they would go a very, very long way to ensure that our talent, which definitely I believe is the right talent, will be nurtured through a lot of training and development. And for all of you that have joined, we thank you as well. We are waiting for your questions. We'll give it a few minutes. I'm sure we have one very quick break from our sponsors, and then we will take your questions and move on. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to our interactive. We have a few comments. A lot of people absolutely love the attitude plus aptitude is equal to altitude. So as HR people, we need to encourage our people to learn from each other formally and informally through collective and social learning, and also develop and promote processes to facilitate learning through the flow of work. That's coming from Dinah A. So Dinah A says we need to collaborate. We don't need to travel to Dubai to go and train. No. We can learn a lot from each other. We can train as we go along informally as well. So we'll take more questions, but then again, we would make sure that you get those questions just so you can answer them, because we have a lot of people that look up to you and the wonderful things you're doing within the HR fraternity, and they would want to tap into that knowledge. But I would like to say thank you very much for honoring our invitation to come and be a part of this all-important interactive. We hope if we call you, you will come again and again and again. Hopefully the next time we would have people in the auditorium, and they would be amazing. But thank you very much. And for all of you that have joined us, we really appreciate your time. It's been amazing. It's been fantastic. It's been interactive. It's been a very, very a refreshing fountain of knowledge, and we really appreciate it.